All right. Hey, everybody. Let's see. Okay, make sure everything's set. It's a very interesting setup for this class. All right. My name is Nathan Smith, and I'm the Digital Programming Coordinator here at the Central Arkansas Library System. Thanks so much for joining me for Stream It with OBS Studio. In this class, we're going to talk about OBS Studio. It's free software that allows you to do live video streaming of various sorts. And so we're going to talk about how to use it and kind of get things rolling with that. Before we dive into the main portion of the material, though, a couple of quick preliminary things to get out of the way. First of all, of course, we've always got cool live events coming up here at CALS. There are we have a sort of retrospective discussion that revolves around Anthony Bourdain that's coming up Thursday night at 6:30. So please join us for that. We're going to have some, a sort of a little discussion as part of that, and a couple of folks returning who participate in the Six Bridges Book Festival, and it's going to be a good time, I think. So join us for that, and it'll be great. If you, we've got a ton of technology classes coming up as well, so make sure to check that out. If you go to the library's website, move your mouse over events, you can see all the events by clicking Find an Event Online, or you can see the technology classes by clicking Technology Classes in that same menu. Also, the point of a technology class is for folks to learn stuff. So if I am saying something to you and it's really not quite landing and you're like, what is he talking about exactly? In those types of situations, we want to make sure that, I definitely want to make sure that you are that you're asking questions. So if you have questions, speak up and ask them. If you're joining me here in Zoom, what you want to do is click the little chat bubble at the bottom of the of your Zoom window and type your question in there. If you're watching on Zoom on a mobile device, you'll want to tap the middle of the screen and tap the More button in the corner, and then tap Chat in that menu. If you're watching on Facebook, use the comments like you would on any other post. And if you're watching on YouTube, use the live chat that's right next to me, just to the right. And so, if you have questions, make sure and ask them. Don't worry about whether it's a silly question or any of that kind of stuff. That's not at all a concern. I just want to make sure that, that you get your questions answered, when you ask them. Also, if there are technical difficulties, please let me know, and I will, that way I can correct those as soon as possible. The tech setup for this class is, to be honest, extremely complicated. And so I won't be terribly surprised if there are technical issues, but I definitely want to know about them as soon as they arise, so that way we can make sure that we use our time well. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So as I said, we're going to be talking about OBS Studio today. OBS Studio is a live streaming video tool that's used to create live streaming content. And to download it, what you'll want to do is it's thankfully a free and open source program, so you don't have to worry about whether it's going to cost you extra or anything like that. It is free, and so that's a wonderful thing about it. If you want to get to it, okay, here we go. Now we're talking. All right, excellent. So if you want to download it, all you need to do is head to obsproject.com right up here, and that is going to and that's going to take you there, and then just click whichever operating system you're using, Windows, Mac OS, or Linux, and that'll get you rolling. Once it's installed, when you first start it up, it's going to come up with a little startup wizard thing that'll basically ask you what you want to do, or whether you're interested in streaming or primarily, or recording primarily, or whatever, and it'll try and walk you through some of the basic setup. If you know what platform you're going to be streaming to and things like that, you can go ahead and set it up, but that way. But we're going to assume for the purposes of this class that you're not doing that, because that's how, or because I'm going to show you kind of from scratch how to make this work. So let me go ahead and get everything opened up, and we will dive in to using the program itself. Sorry, I'm having some weird technical things happening with my there we go. Okay, great. All right, so there we go. Okay, cool. So here I am inside of OBS Studio. This is kind of the standard layout, the way that it starts out. And the way that this works, what you'll want to do is, you'll want to think about how you want your video to look. So when you know what, actually scratch that. Let's talk about one other thing first. I want to talk about kind of the setup in general, as far as things like hardware, kind of what you may need and stuff like that. So you do want to think about what kind of content you're creating. So, a very basic kind of content might be something, might be sort of just kind of a basic talking head sort of situation where you're talking to the camera and people are maybe responding to you in chat or things like that. Something pretty basic. If that's the case, then you'll need some sort of a webcam. If you have a laptop, it probably came with a webcam. The webcam that's built into your laptop is probably not great, but if you're not 100% sure you're going to stick with it, then you might as well start with that at least. If you are, if you're going to be doing something a little more complex that might involve screen sharing or presentations or something, obviously you'll need a computer that's decent enough to keep up with running OBS and running whatever software you're going to use to present. So it'll need to be, it'll need to have some, decent amount of power behind it. If you're going to be streaming games, you're going to need a computer that's even more capable than that, because game streaming is going to, because game streaming just running a game uses a lot of resources on your computer. And streaming content also uses a lot of resources on your computer, because your computer is going to be processing sort of the visual information that's coming from your program and working and trying to work with that. And it's also going to be using your and so basically it's going to be taking all that visual information and audio information and kind of compressing it down so that it can be reasonably streamed over your internet connection. And so And so that's a lot of work for your computer to do, but sometimes that's what needs to be done. If you are working on if you're going to be streaming rather than PC games, if you're going to be streaming something like say a game console game, things like that. Depending on the game console, you may be able to stream your content directly from the console. In which case, you'll probably plug your webcam directly into it, and there's kind of an app that you'll download for it. In the case of other game consoles like the Nintendo Switch, which is what I'm going to demonstrate with a little bit later, you'll need something like this. This particular device is the AverMedia Live Gamer Mini, but there are a bunch of other devices like this. This is a USB video capture device. And so if you look at it, I've got, there are 3 cables coming out here. There's a USB cable right here that plugs into the computer. And then there's an input and an output for HDMI. And the input comes from whatever device you have plugged in, or whatever device you want to stream video from, such as a game console. And the output goes out to your computer, or excuse me, to your TV or your monitor, whatever you're using, to actually play the game or monitor your video source, that sort of thing. And so you'll want to make sure that you are, so you'll want to make sure that you have the appropriate hardware for what you need. The other big thing I would recommend would be a microphone and a good set of headphones. You can use a bad set of headphones. That's honestly not going to affect your audience's experience at all. But if you get a better set of headphones, then you'll hear good sound, and that will make it a lot more pleasant to do the streaming. But having a microphone is going to make your audio sound a lot better. Some folks will use like a little headset. Other folks have more of a microphone like this. This is the Blue Yeti, by the way. And I also have over here, I told you the setup was complicated. I also have the Samson, Samson Q2U, which is plugged into the other computer that I'm using to demonstrate. So, you can get a decent microphone, and then your audio is going to sound a lot better, and people are going to be more likely to stick around. So, we've talked about so once you get that, make sure it's something that, make sure all of your stuff works together. If you get a microphone, make sure it's, if you're streaming from, since you're going to be streaming from OBS, make sure that it's you probably want a USB microphone because then you can plug it directly into your computer rather than having to run it through some sort of audio interface or soundboard. And you can, so yeah, those are kind of the basic hardware things to bear in mind. Probably the simplest setup is just with a game console. If you're going to be streaming console games from an Xbox or a PlayStation, the couple most recent versions of those, then you can stream directly from the console. Or obviously, if you're playing computer, if you're playing PC games, you don't really need much hardware at all. If you're playing on a gaming laptop, then you already have a webcam, and you really just need a good set of headphones and a decent microphone. One other thing to think about is lighting. If you, as you're doing this kind of stuff, you'll find it makes a big difference what the lighting setup is. So For me personally, at least here in the office, what I'm doing is I've got a lamp that's right back here to give me a little bit of backlight, and that separates me visually from the background behind me. I've got a bigger light set up over here out of frame that's giving me some brighter light on this side of my face. And then I have a ring light directly behind me. The ring light, a ring light's fairly inexpensive. You can get one for 20, 25 bucks. But it makes a big difference. Just having essentially having light hit your face directly, particularly so that you get light in your eyes. If you look at my face, you can see the ring light reflected there. In video, we call that an eye light, and it makes you look a little more like lively, essentially, when you're on camera. So obviously, again, you don't have to have all of that equipment. I would say if there's one upgrade I can recommend in terms of how you look on camera, the ring light is it. It's not that expensive, and just having that eye light so that it hits your face, and basically having light on you rather than having all the light coming from behind you just makes a big difference in terms of of how everything looks. So once you've got all of that set up and things are connected, what do you do? Okay, let's talk about that. So back over here in OBS, I've got what I need to do is I need to sort of set up my my sources. It says over here, you don't have any sources. Click the plus button below or right click here to add one. So when I say sources, basically we're taking media from various types of input and we're going to combine it all together into our finished stream, more or less. So the first thing that I'm going to show is just setting up a little capture option here. So let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and open up a window. On the demo computer here. Okay, great, excellent, awesome. All right, now I'm gonna hit the plus sign here. And I have a few different options I've got that I could use for this. I have what OBS calls display capture. So I'm capturing my whole screen on a particular screen. This works best if you've got a multi-monitor setup. If you're only using one screen, then this is not going to work so well because you're not going to be able to see OBS and stream whatever's on, whatever you're trying to stream at the same time. But that isn't as complicated or expensive as it sounds. If you're using a laptop, then you can use the display that's built into the computer, and you can use, if you have an external monitor, great. If you don't, you can plug into a TV that has an HDMI input on it, and that will serve as a second monitor for you just fine. So that's the display capture. You also have game capture, which gives you slightly different settings, specifically for if you're playing a game. And then window capture, which is what I'm going for right now. So I'm going to click on window capture, and we'll call it Edge because it's Microsoft Edge. And then, all right, it's trying to get me, or it's trying to identify what it is that I want to stream here, or that I want to capture. There we go. Okay. All right, so there are a number of settings here. Now, this top one where it says window, I basically choose an open window on my computer. Pretty straightforward. Underneath that is this capture method. And it's probably best to leave that just on automatic. It'll usually choose the right one. Basically, which way it's, how is it going to try and get the visual content of the window. And then window match priority says match title, otherwise find window of same type. So this is basically if you have multiple windows open that are the same program, or if you if you're reusing this setup in the future, or if you close a window during the course of this, these are how they, this is how OBS goes about trying to figure out which window you want to share. We'll click OK on this and leave the rest as the default. And now here in my OBS window, I've got it. I've got my web browser showing up here. And if I wanted to do a little screen share, then of just what I'm doing inside my web browser, I can do it. And sometimes I do that when I'm teaching classes. So that's the window capture. If I want to, I could resize this and I can also move it around. We'll talk about that in a sec too. Okay, so let's say I also want my video in the stream here. In addition to just seeing what I'm doing inside my web browser, I want people to be able to see my face and get sort of a more personal feel. What I can do is I can come over here, click the plus sign again, and this time I'm going to head up to video capture device. When I click on that, again, I can create new or add existing, but I don't have any existing ones just yet. Instead of video capture device, I'm going to call that built-in webcam. Click OK. And now it chooses a device. Now, with this drop-down menu here, it says integrated camera. I can choose the Live Gamer Mini here in a sec, but that'll be, you know, when I do this again, I'll be able to do that. And there's some other stuff here. OBS Studio can also do the virtual camera thing. We'll talk about that in a sec. And if I had the GoPro plugged in, I could use that, but I'm not going to. Okay, so down here, I can set the various settings for my camera. I've got the resolution / FPS type, so I can leave it as device default, or I could do custom if I happen to know what the resolution is. But honestly, I don't know for the built-in webcam on this particular computer. Let's assume it's 720p. There we go. That's probably what it was doing anyway. FPS, so a little bit of technical terminology here. FPS stands for frames per second, otherwise known as a frame rate. A frame rate is basically, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the number of still images that appear, that appear on screen over the course of a second in video. So some standard frame rates that you might want to be aware of. Standard frame rate for film, so for an actual movie that you might see in the theaters, now that hopefully you're vaccinated, it runs at 24 frames per second. So there are so each second that you're sitting there in the theater, you've got 24 still images flashing up on the screen, and because they're flashing up, because they're flashing on screen that fast, it gives your eye the illusion of movement, even though technically there's no movement happening. You're actually just seeing light projected on a screen. So 24 frames per second is the standard frame rate for a movie. 30 frames per second is the standard frame rate for TV, at least here in the United States. Elsewhere, like in Europe, the standard frame rate for TV is 25 frames per second. 60 frames per second is the standard frame rate for video games these days. And then, but then you can bump it up further, where a lot of games now support frame rates over 100. So it all depends on what game you're playing and what your equipment supports, and so on. Pretty much any streaming service is going to accept only up to a maximum frame rate of 60 frames per second. And a lot of cameras are not capable of that. And honestly, the higher frame rate you go for, the harder your equipment is going to have to work to output that. So 30 frames per second is usually a pretty good frame rate for streaming in general. And we'll talk about how to set this output frame rate here in a second. But if I wanted to set a specific frame rate for the camera, I could choose from these options here. And there's a lot of other stuff here that we're pretty much just going to leave as is. And I'll just click OK. Nice. Okay, so two things have happened here. One is you'll see a built-in webcam here listed in my list of sources. And of course, I've appeared up here on top. Down here where I have my audio mixer, you'll notice I used to just have this desktop audio and then mic/aux. And now I have now I actually have the now I actually have my now I actually have an extra one for built-in webcam. So that's going to allow me to just a moment, I think. Okay, there we go. So that's going to allow me to use my webcam, or that's going to allow me to use the microphone that's attached to my webcam, which is fine, but it's probably not a great microphone because it's a tiny little pinhole, or in this case, maybe two tiny little pinholes at the top of my laptop panel. So not, just not designed to give you high quality audio. Okay, so now I've got these two sources set up, and now I need to rearrange things a little bit. So if I want to be on screen, but I don't want to be quite so on screen, like I don't want to take up as much room as I currently am, I can drag this video around and put it where it needs to go. I can also take the little dot up here in the corner and I can drag this so that it resizes the video, and I can make it smaller or larger that way. You can use these little side dots, but unfortunately when you do that, oh good, okay. It actually does resize it to scale. That's wonderful. Okay, yeah. Sometimes these little dots on the edges will resize things in a way that distorts them, and that's really bad, especially for your webcam. You don't want to look, you don't want to look like, excuse me. Goodness, it's after lunch, y'all. You don't want to look all squished. So, so you want to make sure that your webcam footage is to scale. One other thing that you can do that's useful, though, if you come over here and you hold Alt on the keyboard and drag in, you'll notice as I drag in, I get this little green box right here. This is going to allow me to crop the video. So I'm not changing the shape of things on screen, but I am changing the shape of my or I'm not changing the shape of the things on screen. I'm just cropping pixels out of my video feed. And so now I get more of a, I get a smaller box here. I don't have to worry about, about my video getting in the way of as much of what I'm of the web browser window capture and so forth. Cool. Okay, let's go ahead and add some more things. So when I click plus down here again, let's say that I want to add a little. Well, you know what? Let's set up a new thing here. Well, let's deal with audio first, and then we'll move on to that. So I've got 3 different audio sources over here that I can use: the built-in webcam, desktop audio, and mic/aux here. So when I choose, the built-in webcam, that is going to be, that's going to be the microphone that's attached to my my laptop's panel. Desktop audio is going to be the audio that's coming from the programs that I'm using on my computer. And I'll probably mute that, at least for now, particularly since with this particular computer that I'm demonstrating on, it's signed into the Zoom webinar, and so it's going to be catching my audio kind of secondhand through the webinar. And then down here where it says mic/aux, let's see what that one is. I'm going to click on the little gear here and click properties. Okay, it just says device default. So whichever one is my default microphone in Windows, that's what it's going to be using. And if I go down here and I right click on the little speaker, then let's see, I'll go open sound settings. Choose your input device. Okay, good. Microphone, Samsung Q2U microphone. Okay, so it's set for the right thing. So the microphone that I have up here, this one, that is what it's counting as, or that's the audio that it's capturing in this mic aux situation here. But I might want to tweak it a little bit. So I'm going to come down here and let's look at some of these settings that we have. So when I click on this little gear, I've got lock volume. So I can set the volume where it should be and then not have to worry about unintentionally changing it. Unhide all and hide and rename. So hide will just basically make this disappear from the list. Unhide all, anything that I made disappear, it'll bring it back. And then rename, I can rename it, and I might actually do that. There we go. And I'll rename it Q2U. So now I know which microphone it is. Now, of course, if I change the default microphone in Windows, then that could be a problem because it'll still be labeled as this, even if that's not the microphone that I'm using. But for now, it's okay. So let's come down here, and we've got a few things I can deal with. One is filters. So if I click on this, I can actually add various audio filters. So we don't have time to go through what each and every one of these does. But just briefly, you've got some important ones are things like the gain. So if you're getting a kind of a low level signal from your microphone, then you might use this gain option to crank it up a little bit. And then you have the compressor here. The compressor is useful because it's going to even out the levels of your audio. So obviously, if you think about the way that we speak as people, we can speak very loudly or very quietly. And a lot of times that can cause a problem because if you speak too quietly, the microphone might not be able to hear you. But if you speak too loudly, then it might sound bad as well. And it just might startle people if you're fluctuating back and forth between really loud and really quiet. And so what the compressor does is it limits that amount of what we call the dynamic range of your audio, so that everything sounds a little more even. Let's see. There's a limiter here, so you can keep your audio from kind of peaking and crackling if it's getting too much in there. And there are a bunch of other things. There's a noise suppression. If you're in kind of a noisy environment, you can use that to filter out some of that noise in the background, and so on and so forth. So I'll go ahead and add the compressor for now. I'll click on that. And I can name it if I want to. And then I can choose a bunch of different settings. So the ratio, essentially how much difference will there be between the loudest parts of my sound and the quietest parts of my sound. And a whole host of other things that we're not necessarily going to go into, but I can, but you can tweak these settings until you get the right sound, essentially. Once I am done, I'll just click close, and now we're good to go. Okay, so let's set up a different kind of arrangement here. So so far on this stream, I just have the built-in webcam and the Microsoft Edge window capture. What I want to do on the next screen is I want to add some other elements like a background, for example. So we'll call this one background. And what I did, I clicked the plus down here and created a new scene. Basically, scenes are different setups, different arrangements for how you want your video to be. And so you can use the same sources in multiple scenes and use them in different ways, or have one scene where your video, from the webcam is in the corner, in the bottom right corner, and one where it's at the top left corner, and you can have one where it's full screen and there's nothing else. And of course your scenes, and so that will allow you to change the arrangement on your screen to suit whatever your purposes are. So I've got a new scene, it's blank. Let me go ahead and click the plus sign. And this time what I'm going to do is just find an image on my computer. I'm going to call it bulbs in this case. That'll be the name. I'll click OK. And then I'm going to go and click on browse, and on the desktop here, there it is. I'll click open. Now I have this picture of the light bulbs, and I'll click OK. And it looks like this is a pretty high resolution image, so it's kind of it's too big. You'll notice I've got my my sort of, I'm gonna move something out of the way here. You'll notice I've got part of the image here, and then I've got, and then it kind of cuts off and goes into this sort of stripy shaded area. What I want to do to make this work better, of course, I can move it around, but I can also right click, go to transform, and click fit to screen. What that's going to do is give me, it's going to scale it down a little bit until it fits right there on the screen. But now I want it to be, I do want some of it to be cut off so that I can get the whole screen full of bulbs, basically. There we go. Okay, so I've got everything resized now, and now I have a full background here. Down here at the bottom, so I could right click on this and I can click filters, or I can click it right here, and there's also the properties button. When I click on that, click the plus sign, and let's see. I'm going to try the sharpen filter and see if I can actually, nope, that's not going to work. All right, I'm going to remove that. And I've got the, I've got that. I'm going to go ahead and add a little filter, a little mask on top of it. Let's see. Well, it does not seem to be working. Anyway, there are some filters in there. You can go through and add them in. Now we'll just stick with that. I'll click close and leave that as is. Another thing that I could do here, because this looks a little busy, is I can go in and add color source. Just going to call it BG filter here. And I'm going to make it black. Click OK. And now I have a problem. So this is on top of this. If I want the bulbs on top of the filter layer, I can do that. No big deal. Just drag up and it works just fine there. What I want to do actually is click on my filters again. And this time I can do this image mask blend. I believe it will. Nope. You know what? Let's not mess with it right now. Okay, well, we're going to get rid of this for the moment because it's not doing what I expected it to do. Sorry about that little rabbit trail. Okay, so if I click the little eye here, you can see that hides it away. Click it again, it'll bring it on back. Let's go ahead and add me back into the mix here. So I'm going to come over, click on the little plus sign and click video capture device again. And this time, rather than create new, I'm going to click add existing and do built-in webcam. Click OK. And there I am again. Okay, let's see. Let's go ahead. I'm going to crop it back down. So I'll hold Alt and there we go. And let's go ahead and cut some of this off too. There we go. Okay, great. So now I have a little window for myself and I can just set it the way I want it to, and I can put it in the corner without it blocking too much stuff. Okay, great. There we go. Now, let's say I want to add, a little, I want to add something else, like, for example, my, well, let's say we want to, I want to show a video and be able to kind of react to it on screen at the same time that, that I'm watching and streaming it out. what I'm going to do is click on media source here, click OK, and I'll click browse. I'm going to choose this video. This is just kind of a little background video. Some random people hanging out and in a coffee shop, or I don't know, maybe a bar or something. It looks like they have beers. So I can take this and I'm going to scale it down a little bit again. Whoops. Somehow I got the picture. Oh, that's the filter thing. You know what? I'm just going to get rid of this. So down here, I'm going to click on it and just hit the minus so that that's just not in our way anymore. Okay. Choose the video. And I'll come up here and scale it down. So now, here I am with the where I can see the video, or you can see the video and you can see me. I can even add some extra stuff here, like I'll go ahead and throw in, actually, let's throw in another color source. That's a little too light. So let's go something like that. That's pretty good. And we'll make it, well, we can just resize it. All right, I'll click OK. And now I can scale this down and resize it a little bit. Put it right in the middle here. And I don't know, make it 200, 400. You can actually see the size that's coming up as I scale this. It's a little bit clunky, but it'll be okay. Okay, that'll work. That's fine for now. All right, there we go. So I've got that, and then I can put some text in there, like I'm going to make this come down here, alignment center. And click OK. And I can resize this and scale it as I need. Get it in exactly the right spot. Great. Okay, excellent. So so that'll do us for this scene. Let's go ahead and try. I'm gonna right click on my on this scene here, and I'm gonna click duplicate this time. And we'll call this one all right. So I am going to go ahead and remove my text. So I'll, yes. Yes. And bye. Okay, cool. All right. So this time I'm going to bring in some game footage from the Switch, as I mentioned toward the beginning of class. So I'm going to turn that on and get that set up. You may need to give me a moment or two because it's, as I said, it's a complicated setup here. So let's see. All right, there we go. Things seem to be working. And I need to get my, all right, I need to get my, now I need to add the source for the game so that y'all can see what I'm seeing. So what I'm going to do, I'll click plus again on the down here in the sources menu. And I'm going to go to video capture device again. Again, I'm going to create new. And this time, all right, I'll click OK. And then what I'm going to actually choose for this particular device, it has a separate piece of software that makes it a little, that works a little bit better if you're streaming content. And so I'm going to choose that Live Gamer Mini Stream Engine for here. And it's going to have to think about it for a second. And it gives me that warning about color, but I'm not honestly sure why it's doing that. And now I'll click OK. Okay, so now I have, I've got the sound coming in from the game and the video coming in from the game, as you can see. I'll jump. But I need to make sure that my audio levels are right. So a few things that I can do here. One, I want to probably turn this down, turn the game audio down just a little bit. So I'm going to bring this down probably to about here. So that way when I talk, maybe even a little further. So when I talk, it sounds a little bit louder than the game and can easily be distinguished from the game. And then I've got my, I can also click the little gear and go to my advanced audio properties. Here in this advanced audio properties window, there's a bunch of stuff happening. I've got, I can adjust the volume here as well as using these sliders. I can also change it so that a particular source is mono rather than stereo. If it's a stereo source to begin with. If it's not, then I just won't have this checkbox. I can change where it is in the balance, left to right. If I find that my mic and my camera aren't quite in sync in terms of the video, then I can also get the I can also adjust this sync offset. Basically, you just want to play with it until it's right, but most of the time you'll probably have to delay the audio a little bit because audio is just less information than video. And so it's more likely that you're going to have a problem. It's more likely that the video is going to be behind the audio rather than that the audio is going to be behind the video. But if it, you know, if you have the opposite problem, then that's fine too. Your audio monitoring. So this is pretty useful and important. So right now, when I'm looking at this, so let me see whether I'm sharing sound or not. Okay, there we go. Now I'm sharing sound. So when I'm looking at this, what I've got is my, I have my, all of this is set to monitor off, which is generally good because most of the time what's going to happen is when you have it set this way, the audio that you get from your, because generally most of the audio that you hear is going to be going into your headphones or out of your speakers, preferably into your headphones, before it ever goes out to the stream. And so so you're going to need to and so you won't need to hear it through this. But if for some reason the audio is not coming in, you know, if you're not hearing the audio in your mix beforehand, and this would be with the particular setup that I have here right now, I can hear the audio from the switch already. But if I couldn't, then I would want to go ahead, click where it says monitor off here, and click, and then I have two other options. So monitor off means it's going out to your viewers, but it's not coming through OBS into your headphones. Monitor only is the opposite. It'll come into your headphones, but your viewers won't hear it. Monitor and output means it'll go out to the stream, and it'll also, and you'll also hear it in your headphones. So when I turn that on and click close, you should now be hearing the audio from the game as well. Let's see, I'm going to resize my video here so that I can still be seen on the camera. And I'm not sure what's happening there. Frozen. There we go. Okay, cool. Got it unfrozen. Let's go ahead and make this bigger, just a little bigger, so that way it's right up next to the edge of my video frame there. And then you're pretty much ready to go live. Nice. So we're ready to go live, but we haven't gone live yet. So we need to make sure that that we do that. Otherwise, we're playing to an audience of one. So what we need to do is we need to get our settings ready to stream here. I'm going to go in, change my properties again, and turn monitor back off so that way y'all aren't hearing the whole time during the rest of this class. Okay, cool. So, so the three buttons that are here, the ones that we need for the ones that we will normally use for our for actually outputting something from OBS are start streaming, start recording, and start virtual camera. So we're going to use these in a moment, but we've got to do our prep first. So let's click on settings here. And we've got a whole bunch of stuff going on here. Now you can look through all of these. A lot of this stuff is kind of like stuff you probably don't need to fiddle with all that often. And so, you know, don't stress over it, essentially. There's, but the biggest things we need to look at are, first of all, this stream area here. So when you're streaming to a particular service, you can do it in OBS in a bunch of different ways. So if you choose Twitch, for example, then you can use this connect account. And basically that's going to pop up with a little window and prompt you to like use your and prompt you to sign in with your Twitch account. So if you're streaming to Twitch, that's a good way to do it. And so you know, it's as long as you own the account you're streaming to. If you're streaming to like a shared Twitch account, then you should have a stream key, and you'll need that. So the way that works, you click use stream key, and then because it has some Twitch information built into it, it'll choose auto, or you know, it allows you to automatically choose a server, or you can manually choose a server. And then you need to paste that stream key, which if you're streaming like that, you will have gotten the stream key in an email. What do I mean though when I say stream key? So it also has settings for YouTube, Facebook Live, Restream, which is a service that I'm actually using right this moment, Twitter/Periscope, and if you click show all, it's got a bunch of other more niche services that aren't as popular. But I'm going to click on custom because I want you to see kind of the general way that this stuff is set up. So here, so to stream, most of the time, except for certain situations where you use this authentication thing, normally you don't use that. The vast majority of services don't require that. The vast majority of times, what you'll need is a server and a stream key. So the server is the address where you're sending the video information, you know, in order to go out on the stream. The stream key is kind of a combination between like a targeted, a specific target stream. So like you're saying, well, I'm streaming to this particular page. So so for example, on the you know, on this, you know, on the stream that I'm running right now on YouTube, I can see like there's a page that's called Stream It with OBS Studio on the Cal's YouTube channel. Excuse me. And there's a specific stream key for that stream. Anything that goes to the right server using that stream key is going to appear on you know, on that page and stream out live on that page. So let's see, we've got our, so let's see, let me show you what I'm talking about. Forgot I don't have it bookmarked on here. Very annoying. Okay, let's see. It's really hard to get to this thing without going to a specific spot for some reason. Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay, so this is actually the back end. This shows the YouTube, the back end of the YouTube stream that we're running right now. And so right here is the stream key. If I wanted to stream to this event page, I would click copy here to grab the stream key. It's a very long string of letters and numbers. I would copy it there and then just switch back to OBS and paste it right here in this stream key blank. For server, same thing. I would grab this stream URL and I'd paste it right here in this blank. Then I would click OK or apply. And then I would be, and that would get me, that would get my settings ready to stream to YouTube. Another place that we, and it's going to be a similar thing in pretty much every live streaming service. Every live streaming service does it a little bit different, but it basically all relies on this setup of the server address and the stream key, or else you can sign into your actual account. So it just depends on how you want to do it. One of the things that's useful, let me actually show you this too, is back here in the same area, I've got my, I can click schedule stream up here at the top. And then if I click create new, what it's going to do is it's going to walk me through the process of creating. So I'm going to call this fake stream. We'll make it unlisted so that way it doesn't appear anywhere. I can upload a custom thumbnail for it beforehand. So a thumbnail image for on a YouTube video or stream in particular is going to be an image that's 2 megabytes or less. Generally speaking, you want to have a 16:9 aspect ratio. 16:9 aspect ratio means for every 16 pixels it is wide, it's 9 pixels tall. So that's the same shape as basically any TV made after 2005 or 6, and a lot of computer monitors as well. And then you have to choose whether it's made for kids or not, and then you click create stream. Okay, it's dropped me here. I've got my stream key, I've got my URL, and I can change some of these settings if I want to. And the nice thing about this, because I've scheduled it for a specific date and time, and particularly if I've set up a thumbnail, which is really highly advisable, then folks who come to my YouTube channel beforehand, at least if this video wasn't unlisted, folks who come to my YouTube channel beforehand are going to be able to see that I'm planning to do a stream at a particular time. And so then when they, when the appointed time arrives, they can come back to that page and they can, and they can watch the video. And they can even like mark that, oh, they're interested in watching it, and they'll get reminders and stuff. And that's pretty helpful. So that's a really helpful thing that you can do. You can find this. You can also choose the latency. So in other words, how fast is your video going to go out? Depending on, so the normal latency is going to essentially prioritize high quality rather than being fast. If you go with the lower latency options, basically YouTube is going to spend less time processing your video, so it's going to go out faster, but that's going to be at a cost because it won't look as good. So you get to choose whether being instantaneous or the video looking good is a higher priority to you. So output here, when I choose these output options, I can set I can set them for a lot of different, in a lot of different ways. So there's the video bit rate. So essentially how much information is being sent, or at least is intended to be sent to my streaming service as I'm streaming out. 2500 is a pretty good kind of like a middle of the road setting, but you can bump it up higher depending on what streaming service you're using. Twitch, I think, supports a bit rate of up to 6,000 kilobits per second. But obviously, you're going to have a pretty fast internet connection and a pretty good computer to make that happen. You can also choose your encoder here. So this laptop has an NVIDIA graphics card built into it. And so here under hardware, it says NVENC. So that's using that graphics card to process the video. There's also another hardware mode that's more general, or a software mode that uses strictly the processor of my computer to run this. Depending on what kind of hardware you have in your computer, you may only have the option of software, or if you have, say, if you have, say, an AMD graphics setup, then you might end up, then those may be the options that are, then you may have an AMD specific setting here instead. And then for recording, you can set the options. So the recording quality, you can set it the same as the stream, or you can set it, to a different setting. High quality, indistinguishable quality, basically almost completely exactly like the original source, and then lossless quality, which is exactly like the original source. You can change your recording format. One quick thing to mention about this MKV format that it uses is kind of flexible. I think it's an open source format, but it can be, the compatibility with some programs is hit or miss. I use Adobe Premiere Pro to edit video, and MKV files are one of the few types of files I've run into that don't work with that. So I actually have to, if I accidentally record an MKV, I actually have to convert the file before I can use it in Premiere. So you may want to choose these settings depending on what video editing software you're using and things like that. Under audio, I can set up a bunch of different things. You can also record multiple audio tracks, which is interesting and kind of similar to if you're watching a DVD or Blu-ray. You could change the audio to Spanish, or you can hear the director's commentary, things like that. You can basically do the same thing here. So you can record different mixes of the sound, or you could have like one audio track that's just the game audio, and one audio track that's just the audio from your microphone, and one that's both mixed together, or whatever the case may be. And then under video, you can change these settings here. So the base or canvas resolution, that's essentially what resolution you're starting with as you're arranging your screen. And then the output or scaled resolution, essentially what quality of video you're ultimately putting out to the streaming platform. Excuse me. And you can change these as you need to. Of course, the higher resolution you go with your output, the more likely, then you're going to need more. Essentially, you're going to need a better. You're going to need a more powerful computer, and you're going to need a better internet connection. At some point, if you go too high, some streaming services are just not going to accept it. In fact, 1280 by 720 or 720p, as we say, is the maximum for Facebook in particular. Some of the other services have different requirements. So depending on where you're streaming to, this could be a consideration, and also depending on what your computer hardware is like. You can change how the downscaling is done if it has to, if OBS is having to resize things to make them fit on your screen. Is it essentially what software tricks is it going to use to resize? So bicubic here is the default, but you could go with other ones depending on whether you want it to be faster or more, again, higher quality. And then common FPS values is basically the frame rate, as we talked about before, that you're shooting for or that you're planning on with your putting out to the streaming service. So you can play around with these settings. If you find that you don't get it exactly the way you want it, that's okay. Like one of the nice things about this, about things like live streams is they're live, so people don't necessarily expect them to be beautiful and perfect every time in every way. Or if they do, you should find a different audience. But it's easy to, if it doesn't go great, then try again with different settings next time, do a few test runs, that sort of thing. And eventually it'll come out the way you want it. There's a, so let's see, what next? I'll click OK down here to accept my settings. And there are a few, but let's talk about these controls right here. Okay, so first we have start streaming. So if I click on that, it's going to start sending my video to the server that I designated down here in the settings using the stream key that I pasted in. Start recording is going to start recording a version of the video to my computer's hard drive, and that way I can go back and I can have a copy of it even if something goes wrong in the live stream. It's still running, so if I don't notice until later, I can I'll still have a video version that I can upload at another time. And then there's start virtual camera. So this is an interesting thing. This is fairly new. Basically, well, how this works, if I click start virtual camera, then it just turns on. And then if I go over, and y'all probably won't be able to see this, but if I go over to Zoom and I select my camera, settings. Let me see if I can make that show up. Nope, it's in a weird place somewhere. I don't know. So anyway, if I go into Zoom and I select my camera and I change my camera settings over, I'll actually get, if I go to, I can actually select an option that says OBS virtual camera. When I click on that, and then I start video on this computer, then it's going to show the OBS stream. Essentially, it's going to stream the output into Zoom or into whatever other software I'm using, as though OBS were a physical camera connected to my computer. Go ahead and mute the thing here. And if I turn it on as a microphone also, then y'all will be able to hear the sound even. Just like that. We also have a, oh wait, you didn't actually hear the sound, did you? this. Cool. So I'll turn that off for the moment. Okay, great. So there's one other button here that we haven't talked about yet, other than exit, of course, and that's studio mode. So one of the things about these scenes, they're designed so that you can switch back and forth between them pretty seamlessly. The way that works is if I choose the, let's see, change my setup back here. The way that works is if I choose my, or is right now I'm showing you or I'm, theoretically I'm streaming out the game stream scene. But let's say I want to switch back to my screen share where I was surfing the web earlier. If I'm not in the studio mode, it's just going to give me one window here. And if I want to switch the screen share one, I'm going to click it and it's going to switch over like so. Then here. And then if I want to go back to the game stream, I just click that again and it fades, kind of cross fades between the two. This transition is that transition where it fades over, well, a second is right here. If I want to, choose a different kind of transition, I can. Got the cut transition where once I click it, it just goes straight to the other. And I can add other types of transitions. Preview it like so. And now, if I switch, nice. But that's all happening in real time. And, essentially, if I have to be really ready for it, and I have to know exactly what my scenes are. And if I have a bunch of scenes, that could be a problem. If I want to be able to kind of prepare for the next scene, then I can switch to studio mode. And the way this works is I've got my preview over here and I have my program over here. So this is what's actually going out to whoever is watching my stream. But if I want to change, the settings here, or even if I want to edit that's the other thing. If I want to edit my thing on my scene on the fly, right now this is going out to my viewers, but I can come over here and I can change the scene. And then when I'm ready, I can click transition. And it switches over to the new version of the scene that I have over here. So I can make all these changes here without my audience watching, because otherwise what they're going to see, if I'm outside of studio mode, they're going to see me fiddling around with it. They're going to literally watch me drag this image all around and whatever else I'm doing, they're going to watch me do that. Sometimes that may be fine if you're teaching a class, for example, about OBS, but a lot of the times it doesn't look quite as polished. So switch to studio mode. You can still make all the tweaks and changes that you want, but rather than doing them in front of the audience, you make the tweaks, then you click transition to change the setup to the new version of the scene, or the other. Or to the other, or to another scene altogether. And that's pretty much it for the most part. Do y'all have any questions before we wrap it up for today? Well, I don't see anything. So if you do find later on that you have questions, please feel free to let me know. You can shoot me an email at digital@cals.org. And I hope in the meantime that you have a fantastic rest of the day. Thank you so much for joining me, and talk to you later.